Guru Nation, welcome back. Thank you guys so much for checking out another episode. It's soon to be holiday season. Unless you're watching in the future, then whatever it is when you're watching, I hope everything's okay with you. And I hope you're doing what you can to advance your career or advance your skill set or advance your knowledge. Or maybe you just need some inspiration. That's why we have today's guest on, Almina. Almina is somebody I've been talking to on Instagram. We have her Instagram link underneath the video. So go if you want to connect with her. She's easily accessible. She likes to do the voice messages on Instagram. So you can send her a voice, she'll send you a voice. It's actually, we had a lot of conversations prior to her getting, guess what it is, guys? A CRA role. The highly desired CRA role. And what a lot of you guys watching think that that's the destination. Let me tell you guys, that's just the beginning of your career. So Almina's just getting started, even though her background's amazing. So Almina, take us through, we're going to get to how you got to CRA, but take us through like college, what you majored in, when you first discovered research, how, let's go through that and lead up to your career.
I started nursing school. This was back in 2011.
Ooh, okay.
And yes, and after nursing school, I decided I wanted to get a business degree. Not exactly sure why. I just had an opportunity and I took it. So after my business degree, I ended up getting a job in an emergency room, level one of the biggest trauma centers in St. Louis area. And I was on their stroke and critical care team, but eventually got burnt out after a number of years and shorted staff and all the other things. So I decided I've always had a passion for oncology. There was an opening and one of my friends mentioned, hey, you should really get into research. It's something that you would really enjoy. It's challenging. It's type of a work that you would really like. So I kind of Googled and I said, sure, sounds like me, take a new challenge. So I ended up getting a job as a startup oncology assistant. I was there for 2 years and we did hundreds of new studies a year. Very busy, extremely busy place. And I loved it. I really did. But I did want to advance. And I got accepted into grad school. I did accelerated MBA in healthcare, and wow. I will be done in a month. Yes.
What do you think? Do you recommend this degree?
For to land a CRA job, no.
Right.
To learn more and get knowledge, yes. If you really want to have a resume that looks good, that's about it. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I was thinking about going for NP, but all of my friends that are done with nurse practitioner school, they're still working on the floor. They're making less than CRAs. And
I know.
And so I did not want to do that. And then the SEBIs that I worked with on some of my oncology studies, they didn't seem to be happy. And they were all in like $200,000, $300,000 debts. And I'm like, I didn't want to do that.
They're in a lot of debt.
Yes.
I work with a lot of NPs. My business partner at my site is an NP. And, you know, he's telling me about what they make where they work. And it's like, you know, you can make this easily, like if you owned a site and only did one study all year and you're the coordinator, you know,
absolutely,
you yes. Make that and have your own schedule. They work like 3 12-hour shifts, you know, and then so there's a lot of perks. They pay for their student loans, but man, your friends were kind of right, you know, with telling you maybe not to go NP route, although you could have done well that too.
Thinking back, yes, now that I am a CRA, but it's okay. It is what it is now. So
yeah, there's no
everything happens for a reason. Exactly. So I did, so during the pandemic, institution that I worked for, they laid off 4,500 people. So
Wow.
we ended up getting so we did the study startups, we did all the reg docs, like the make sure that everybody's GP,
Yeah.
see, like all of the things, like 1572 was like I tell you, there was like a new sub-I every single week. So 1572 and DOAs were like, my God, death of
Changed.
me,
Changed
yes,
every
like
week.
absolutely. And then I think what ended up really getting to me is like number of different like roles that I had to, and I was always there. I mean, sometimes I worked from 4 in the morning to like 9 at night. And at
At the
that point, I'm
clinic,
like,
at the site?
so we would do 8 hours at the clinic, but then you would do like I would get all the documents like ready for the sub-Is to sign, the FDFs, and
Mm.
like it was just insane. And then we would have to cover like the coordinator's position as well, because all the agency coordinators were laid off. So
Wow.
I decided that I needed to do something different, that if I was going to be working these hours, I might as well go back to the ER and save lives if if this is going to continue. So I looked at the in-house CRA position, and they said, yes, your work ethics are amazing. However, you have no experience. I said,
In-house
okay,
CRA told you this.
yes. And I have
Wow.
never called in sick. I have always been there. I've always tried to go above and beyond and like with
Look,
my work ethics.
hold on, because there's job recruiters watching this. So we got to tell them right now. Okay. When you get somebody like Almina, she has research experience. She's done study startup. She's generalist. She's even done coordinating stuff with her clinic for oncology, not just any indication, oncology. And she's a nursing background, soon to be master's degree. And she applies for your in-house CRA job, which is an entry-level position in most cases. And you guys say no. Do you
Mhm.
realize, I hope you're listening, that your competitors are laughing at you because they hired her as a CRA? Not an in-house CRA, a CRA. All right. So some job recruiter dropped the ball there. Anyways, had to get that off my chest.
Oh, just wait until you hear the rest.
Oh, let's
So,
hear the
oh
rest.
gosh,
Wow.
yes. So I started applying, and I just thought, why not? I spoke to a couple of CRAs that were on my site, and they're like, you are doing way too much. Like, you're doing way too many like roles. Like, you would be an amazing CRA. Like, just apply. So I said, why not? So I applied. I ended up getting 3 interviews, which first interview lasted not even 10 minutes. So I knew it wasn't a good sign.
What was that interview for?
It was for a CRA.
Okay. Okay.
So she said, yeah, you don't have experience. We apologize. Maybe you could go through like a mentorship, but we don't have that. So
Mm.
just get back to us once you have more experience. I said, okay. Well, I that didn't stop me. So I reapplied. And this was for a remote oncology like coordinator position.
Okay.
Same thing. They said, well, you don't have experience. And I'm like, I've done the job. They're like, well, it wasn't officially a title, so we can't hire you. I said, okay.
But you put
So
the
then
skills on your resume, right? You put
I
like what you
did.
did.
Yes,
Okay.
I did. But I made changes to my resume looking at your videos. So I kind of
Okay.
adjusted things where it was basically the same thing. It was just worded different. And I think it just made a difference. So the third interview lasted not even 3 minutes. They had open interviews for like entry level CRAs. So I went on an interview and she said, yeah, you don't have any experience. And I said, I do not have an experience as CRA. And she said, well, we don't have time to train. Those are her exact words. So then I
Wow.
knew I had to do something different. So I
And these are
started
all different
Googling
companies?
different companies. Yes.
Okay.
And so I've followed up with the recruiters. I've asked for feedback, just to make sure that it's not something that I'm doing, that's something on my end. Nothing. They're like, oh, you're fine. Everything's fine. And one of the recruiters said, sometimes you may be a little overqualified for like a coordinator position. So he said, even if you are, he's like, just take it. So
Mm.
be a coordinator for 2 years and then try to get a job as a CRA. But I'm like, that's a kind of, I would go backwards if that makes any sense. So I finally decided, I started Googling things and I didn't find anything. I went on Amazon trying to purchase books and really didn't find anything there because I didn't really know any better. So that's when I came across your videos. I went on YouTube and started searching like CRA, like interview. And then I came across a couple of like videos, but they were not as detailed. So that's when I came across your channel. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is everything I need. So then I did. Oh, absolutely. So I would get like on the bike or treadmill and I would have your videos on the TV. And that would be my motivation. I'm like, I can do this. It's doable. So I did the 4 hours video that you had, like I think 4.5, something like that.
Yep.
And you went over everything. So what I did, I took notes of every single thing. You went over SIVs. I took that. You went over like the monitoring visits. I like everything that you went over. I took notes. I highlighted things. I purchased your book. I'm
Yes,
like, I'm going to get the CRA job. So I did all of that. I had a better understanding how to really present myself in an interview. And some of the things that I've done, like I wasn't explaining them well. Like I would just say, oh yes, I did oncology studies. Well, I remember in one of the videos you were saying, well, explain what you're doing, like mention the skills, like just put yourself out there. So that's what I did. So the next call that I ended up, so it took about a week, actually, all of your videos, like the notes, and then I would review my notes before I would go to bed. And so the next interview I ended up getting, they were amazed. They were like, oh, and I just really, I'm like, I can do this. I felt more confident after all of that. Yes,
See,
I
that's
did.
what's important. Do you feel
It
like
is.
that first interview that only lasted 10 minutes, where they said no thanks, that you were not confident enough from the beginning? Do you feel like that's the problem?
I think so. I
Hmm.
do. I wish that I came across your videos prior to my first interview,
I see.
because I do feel like that first interview did a little bit of damage.
You think it could have gone
um,
differently if
I definitely, yes, because
interesting?
it was the same kind of like a setup interview for the company that I was hired for, and same kind of questions. And I wasn't really nervous. I just felt confident. I'm like, I can do this. I have all the information. I know this stuff. So I did the best that I could. And he
Wow.
said, he's like, oh, we'll get back to you in a week. I said, okay. Didn't think, I said, if this doesn't work, then I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
apply and I'm just gonna watch more videos. And I reached out to you actually. I said, hey, I had this, and
Yeah,
this is after I kept like getting rejected. I'm like, what can I do? And I remember you're like, and I was telling you, I said, I purchased the book, I'm watching the videos, and you said you will be fine.
I
And I'm
did
like,
say that. I
okay.
saw it. I
So
saw it
yeah,
today.
so the day of the interview, I think I texted you. I'm like, hey, like any recommendations? And you're like, just like, it's okay, just relax and like kind of go with the flow thing, like you're okay, like you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So the next day I get the call back and they're like, they would like to set up a second interview. I'm like, well, I think I did well. I mean, he said it would be like a week, but then they called me the next day. So I did. So we got the second interview scheduled like within 48 hours.
But
So the
the
second,
first interview, this interview you did where you did well compared to
yes.
the one that only lasted 10 minutes.
Mhm.
Were you like a different person when you were interviewing? Like
Yes,
confidence that
100%.
so you were like completely different person. Same resume, but
Absolutely.
different
Same.
mindset.
Absolutely. Yes.
What was your
And
attitude the second time? Like, hey, I know what I'm doing. Like, you guys should hire me.
Yes. Uh,
you'd be foolish not to hire me. Was that like your attitude mostly?
It was absolutely
That's
like
what you gotta
this
do,
will,
guys. That's what you
yes,
gotta
like
do.
I feel like this first interview, I didn't really like, I don't want to say brag. I didn't really talk about myself at all. It was
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh, okay, this is where I work. This is what I do. This is,
Mm.
but the interview that finally I ended up getting the second chance, I was like, this is how many studies. This is like, I went into details. And like, after listening to your book, like, I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do. Like, I need to let these people know, like, they need to hire me because of this and this. So, I felt 100% confident. And I said, if they don't hire me, somebody else will. I know they will because I
Of
know this
course.
stuff. Like, it's just, and honestly, that 4.5 hours video, like, changed it all. Not
Wow.
only for me. So, the girl that interviewed a week before me, we kept in contact, and she said the same thing, that the video of 4.5 hours like did it for her. She worked as a coordinator, so she had the experience, more experience than I did, but she still was getting rejected. So it's not only me
Mm.
that it works for.
Wow. So seeing
Yes.
the whole picture, I think what helps is maybe seeing the whole picture and understanding that this is what they need as a CRA. So now you as the applicant, you can reverse engineer what they need, but you already know what they need. So once you know what they need, your confidence improves because knowledge helps confidence, right? And nobody
Absolutely,
wants
yeah.
to hire somebody who's begging for a job because they think, well, what's wrong with this person? Like, why are they, the industry is hot right now. Why are they begging me for a job? They want the person
Mhm.
who says, well, all right, let's do this, but I have another like 3 more interviews next week too with other people.
Yes. So I think that's the honestly the major key, like to like becoming and getting a job as a CRA. You have to be confident. And I knew like majority of the things on the video, but I feel like I had skipped some of like, so for example, like when I would get like the documents for a study, the SIV would already happen. So I needed
Mm,
to understand what happens prior to SIV, during the SIV, after the SIV, for example.
mm.
So those are some things that really helped me understand it. Okay, well, I know 1572, it's important because of this and this, and I know how to create it, get it done, and but I need to understand things behind it. Does it make any
It
sense?
makes
So
a lot of
that's
sense to
and
me.
that's what I think
To the people
helped
watching,
me.
I don't know if it makes sense to everybody. That's why we have
Well,
you on.
I just feel like I people need to understand when they're really what they're being asked and what they're
Yes.
like listening to. Because the first time they asked me about 1572, actually, and they said, well, what's the most important? Well, the signature, the PI, and they're like, well, no, be more specific. And I think I just like kind of froze. Does it make like, I'm like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked with 1572s every single day. But then the other time when I was given second chance, I'm like, oh, 1572, this is on it. That's on it. This is the most important. Like I gave them details. So,
Details
um,
is what matter. I think that's important that you bring that up because I
yes,
think the people watching and listening, they don't understand the level of detail. Like you could watch that 4-hour video, you could read the book. That's still just an overview. Um, I had SIV the other day, and then the CRA did the SIV, and now the project manager is emailing me things like the level of detail they email. They question every little aspect of my SOP as a site for how it relates to their study. So I have like 50 sections in my SOP, and they say, hey,
oh
in
my God.
section 47, in section 40, and in section 11, we have these questions. So somebody read my entire SOP as a site from the CRO, and they related it back to their protocol. This is like and that's just one thing. There's like forms, there's DOA log,
Sure.
1572. I forgot to put
Mm-hmm.
dates of training on people. So they said, hey, you got to go get this
Mm-hmm.
done. all that stuff that
All the
you're going to be
details.
doing. Yeah, but people don't understand, so they go into these interviews thinking that they know like just the basics, but you got to go in there with the confidence to say, look, I know the level of detail here, and you may not know, but you can kind of push yourself in that position to where you could learn more. And that's, I think, exactly what you did.
Absolutely. And it may take a couple of days, it may take some of your time, but gosh, do it because it will make such a huge difference. Write notes. Like I'm really big on writing notes and just like really staying organized with everything. And that's what I did with the notes. I wrote like notes for everything. And I would just review them and everything that was in my notes, I was being asked. So the second interview went well. I went back to your like videos for the third interview, and she said, "We'll let you know. We'll make a decision in 10 days." I said, "Okay." Well, 3 days later, I ended up getting an offer.
Wow.
And then my recruiter actually gave me a feedback, which of course I didn't expect that. He said they really liked you. They really felt that you were really detailed. You really like when you talked about like things that you've done and the things that just about like oncology and research, you talked with such a passion and like confidence. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm thinking, really? But just 3 weeks ago, I was being rejected at every single interview. So it makes such a huge difference. And I have notes. If anybody needs any of those notes that I wrote, I'm willing to share them. Like,
You can
by
make
all means.
A Kindle book and sell them on Amazon. So the future
Um,
Alminas who are searching can find it.
well, no, that credit belongs to you. So,
Okay,
but
thank you.
really, it's. I would say if somebody really wants to go out there and get a CRA job that doesn't have any prior experience, that possibly doesn't even have a coordinating experience, they can do it. It can be done. You just,
Do
have
you
to.
do you feel that these next interviews went well? Was it different people each time in those for the same job, but the three different
Yes,
interviews, different people?
yes, yes.
Okay, so I know they went well and you got the job. If they wouldn't have gone well, were you nervous at that time? Or did you think, okay, well, I can just get another interview and I'm not nervous? Because a lot of people like the nervousness makes them not perform as well during the interview as they can.
And I think that's what happened with the first interviews. I was very nervous because I wasn't as confident. But the last interview, I really was confident. I said, I know this. I've gone through every single page. I've read everything. Like I know this stuff. Like if they don't hire me, somebody else will.
There you go.
So that's how confident I ended up getting. So honestly, I feel like from zero confidence to like 100 in let's say maybe 3 weeks with your
Wow.
help.
Just from all
So
the notes that
it's
you took.
yes. And I feel like because English is my second language, so sometimes I do have to question things twice. And it's not only me, it's other CRAs as well. And I feel like sometimes when you make the videos and talk, you speak to the public in a language that people can understand. And it's like, okay, this is not as difficult and hard. You explain things well. So
Thank you.
they
Thank you.
really just need to watch the videos, purchase your book, take notes, and they will be fine.
Thank you. I think the last part you said is the most important because see the video, the book, it's available to everybody. The video is free. The books you get for $3 on Kindle. It costs more if you want the audio book, whatever. That's available to everybody. But the taking the notes, doing the work, repeating it when you're on the bike, repeating it in the night when you go to bed, in the morning,
Yes.
that's you. I can't do anything about that, and that's, I think, the variable. It's not enough to just know, it's enough to know how it applies to your prospective employer. And I think that's the difference. And that's why Almina's a CRA and why others struggle because you're not putting in the work, guys.
And you have
put it
to.
in.
And, I remember when I came to United States, things were really hard, of course. We didn't speak the language. I mean, it was just really challenging. I'm sure people can relate. Some people can relate. But I always promised myself, if 20 doors close, I will be reaching for a window. Like I will be getting out there and like not giving up. It's so
Right.
easy to get discouraged and give up. I felt the same way after the first interview. I'm like, oh my God, nobody's gonna hire me. And then I'm like, what am I thinking? No, I need to go out there and do it. So
Yeah. And the issue it seems like was actually you because your mindset was different. So the employer,
absolutely.
something's off with the employer's mind. They're like, well, why is this person behaving this nervous? This is a little bit unusual. So we'll end it. We'll end the interview right now.
Yes, the 3-minute interview, the second interview that I had, she asked me about protocols. And I mean, this is something that I deal with as well in study startup all the time.
Yeah.
And my mind just froze.
What did
I
she
mean,
ask
I'm
you?
just like, she said, oh, can you talk about the latest protocols that you have done for a new study?
Oof, that makes me nervous.
And I'm like, and I just like, and then
Wow.
she said, okay, she said, should I go to the next question? I said, so what I did for my very last
That's
interview,
brutal.
yes. And I mean, and then she just like, it was very, I thought they were like just regular questions, but they did ask
Wow.
me about the protocols on my last interview too. But what I did is I went back, I looked at the protocols, I learned some of the things that I needed to kind of to answer back, and I was prepared. It wasn't as detailed. It was just like,
Wow.
how many protocols have you done and things like that. But I still was very prepared. So, and I think that's the major key, like to be prepared and confident.
Be prepared because oftentimes they'll ask you. I've only been in a few interviews, but oftentimes they'll ask you, like when they run out of questions, something about a challenge that you overcame. And that's when
Yeah.
you could bring the stuff like the details that you picked up. In Almina's case, she was doing startup for a bunch of studies, but you don't necessarily need to read the protocol. You don't even need to know the protocol to do that
No,
stuff.
no,
So you have to
absolutely.
go back and like look at the bigger picture and say, okay, was a double blind, parallel group, and you can talk a little bit about that. They know that you're not making things up at that point.
Correct. But then another thing I do want to mention is that, and I'm not sure you have interviewed somebody. I think it was a new oncology CRA. And then he just said that be like when you interview, if they ask you questions that you're not familiar with, don't just like, don't say nothing. Like, don't be like, oh, well, I'm not really sure. Well, you can kind of say like, okay, well, for example, the protocols that I didn't remember, you could say, well, with my current role, I didn't need to specifically remember the protocols that I'm on, but I am on these specific studies. So you could kind of change the answer around a little bit.
Yep.
So you're not kind of like, just like, blank out there and like, not saying anything at all. Because I think for
Exactly.
me, that's what made it worse, not saying anything at all versus I could have just said, I'm sorry, with my role, I don't need to know the protocol specifically, but here, like,
Well, you could have
just
been like, you know what, like you guys gotta take lessons from politicians. They do this all the time when media asks them questions, they flip it to something that they're comfortable with because
absolutely, yes,
you could have
yes,
said something like, well, in my role, we had a sub-I every week. So we had the 1572, the training forms constantly being redone. I had to do that. I was responsible for filing those. And we also had SUSARs and just everything you did, you can put like flip it
yes,
to where you're
absolutely,
not really talking
yes.
about protocol, but you're talking about the complexity of your role within the protocol.
Absolutely. And I think that they should have moved on to the next
Yeah.
question and they
Yeah.
would have been fine.
Should have been
So
like, Almina, stop talking. We understand. It's difficult.
yes, yes. And that's the third interview. Like there was one question that I wasn't like 100% sure. And that's what I kind of did. I'm like, okay, well, this and this. And then he's like, okay, that's fine. Oh, he was talking about the consent forms, like in the Bosnian language and things like that. And I just kind of like flipped what I did. And then he's like, okay, that's fine. I'm like, oh, good, you know.
See,
So
guys, that's what it takes. Don't be nervous. Take lessons from our politicians. They do it all the time,
mhm.
and learn that way. So what? Without talking about your new job or company, are you an oncology CRA or what indication you have?
I am, yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's tough, Almina. That's
I
tough.
know. I know. I think my blonde hair will be turning, probably gray soon, but that's okay. I
I've
think
done
there's
two.
just so much to learn. And
Yeah. I've done two oncology, both breast cancer,
that's
and
what, yeah.
they're the most challenging studies I've done to date. And I've done psych. Psych is challenging, but oncology, at least for me, it was like a whole different language. All the medications totally different. All the
Absolutely.
AEs, it's a lot, but you're
And there's
gonna be
so
in
many of
demand.
them. Oh, well, I hope so. But I feel like with oncology, there's just so much. Like all of our patients, I mean, are sick. They're very
Yeah,
sick.
yeah.
So they will have things going on all the time. And it's just a lot of reviewing and reporting and just really paying attention to what you're doing. And if you don't really know, like I feel like I want to tell everybody this, if you're not comfortable with what you're doing, always reach out and ask for help. I feel like it's a new CRA, we need that support. So if you are new and struggling, like don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help and ask other CRAs.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like everybody at one point was new. So
LinkedIn's important. Ask me, guys. I'll make a video about it. Where
and I think me and my girlfriends will, because
Okay,
there's a
let's
couple
do
of
it.
things we're struggling with.
It's a win-win. Not only that I get to help others, but it's more video. I run out of topics sometimes, so like the questions really help me, even if I've done it before.
Oh, good.
Where how long have you been in this role?
For 2 months.
2 months. Have you been assigned
Yeah.
sites yet, or are you gonna be shadowing
Yes,
somebody?
I have 14 sites.
14 sites. Are you going on your own, or you have to go with someone else?
So my next visit, I have to get signed off, and I'm on my own.
After that, you're on your own.
Yes.
Wow.
I
Okay.
know.
And 14 sites. Where are you located? What part of the country?
So central.
Okay. And so you're going coast to coast, or were you going everywhere?
Kind of everywhere.
I see. 14 sites is a
Yes.
good amount. One study?
Uh, so one study, well, I have more sites actually. I'm sorry. For one study, I have 8 sites.
Okay.
So probably
Wow.
looking at 22 sites with all of my
That
protocols.
is something else.
About 13 protocols. So.
When you do this for about a year or two, let's do another interview, because
Yes.
I have questions from CRAs who ask me to do videos on how to keep themselves organized. And I don't have that enough experience as a CRA to do that. Plus, I'm not an organized person anyways. I had Daniel Reget on, the CRA coach, but he kind of stopped doing the coaching. So I think he's too busy with the monitoring. So there's a gap for this kind of knowledge, like from existing CRAs, how they keep themselves organized. So something to keep in the back of your mind as you learn.
Sure. Yes. And I try to stay very organized and very detailed in everything. So I'll certainly, yes.
That's good, Almina. That's awesome. So Instagram, for everybody that wants to connect with Almina, she's on there. And that's it. Anything else you want to say?
I think that's it, really. Just it's doable. It really is. I thought, after that first interview, I'm like, oh gosh, it's going to be very impossible, but it's really not.
Yeah, you became a different person with only like 3 weeks.
Yes. And thinking back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful and grateful, really, for somebody like you that really took your time and just to help everybody out. And like I said, it's not just me that has use the videos in your book to get an interview, to get a job. And even now, like I said, as CRAs, we're like, okay, should we go check with Dan? What he's doing.
Hey,
So
you
it's
guys text me anytime. I need the video. I need more content.
perfect. We'll do. Yes, I'll come up with something today. I'll
All
let you
right.
know.
I'll do it. Thank you so much.
Okay,
All
no
right,
problem.
everybody, go connect with Almina. Almina, thank you so much for coming on. I
Of
hope you
course.
inspired at least one person watching this, probably more, but one at a time. And if you are somebody that's been inspired by Almina or wants to be, connect with her on Instagram and let her know you watched the interview and go from there. You never know what's going to happen. It's not going to hurt to network with people.
Absolutely. And I'll be doing more regarding my little networking social media.
Networking.
So
That's the
I'm a
next
little
step.
behind.
That's the next step, Almina. You just getting
Yes.
started. You're
I
just
know.
getting started.
I know.
All right. Thank you so much for coming
You're
on.
so welcome.
And thank you everybody for watching and listening. And we'll catch y'all later. Bye-bye.
Sounds good. Happy holidays.
Happy
Have a good
holidays
day,
to
guys.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.